Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, 24-hour party people. It is I, Tim the Brand Weaver, and you are listening or watching Branding for Breweries, the podcast that brings the most attractive, intelligent, engaging, and informative people to your eyeballs and earballs, helping your brewery become bigger and better than ever before. And my friends, today is no exception, as today I am joined by the delightful Chris Overlay from Get Hoptimized. Get Hoptimized is an agency that helps breweries tell their story and stand out in market in a way that no other agency has done before. At least that's what he's told me. No, he hasn't. I made that bit up. But he is still very awesome. And actually, the reason I'm talking to Chris today is to talk about owned media, not social media. Everyone knows what social media is. If you don't, you've been living under a rock. Good job for finding the podcast. That must be very challenging for you. But we're going to be talking about owned media. Now, I'm not going to wax lyrical about that. It's much easier to ask Chris to talk about it. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone listening and watching, welcome to the stage, Mr. Chris Overlay. Chris.
What's up, dudes?
Hello, Chris. It's Friday, which just gives me that extra pep in my step, my man. So
I was going to say that was like the most energetic intro I think I've ever heard on a podcast like this. So congratulations, man. That was bravo. That was fantastic.
Dude, I appreciate that, but equally, I am now spent. You need to carry this show for the next 35 minutes, okay? Like, I'm taking a backseat. I'm
done. He's out. He's tapped.
But Chris, apart from being one, incredibly attractive, having a fantastic beard, and having great glasses and a wonderful backdrop, can you share with our good friends who are listening, tuning in, watching, or indeed listening back to this, who you are, what you do, and where'd you come from?
Well, you pretty much hit it all there. That's all I do, man, is backdrops and glasses. So I think we're good. We can wrap up the podcast. Nice to meet you, man. See everybody.
Awesome. No. Everyone, follow Chris's work at Get Optimized, and we'll catch you next week. Peace.
No, man. So I run Get Optimized. Obviously, we're a marketing agency built for craft beer. Really, I kind of categorize this as a growth agency. So we really focus on performance, driving leads, driving sales, driving taproom visits. And that's really been my background as a marketer for my career. I've been doing marketing for like 11 years now. It keeps getting longer every day. My background has been in that. So lots of Google ads, lots of advertising in general, lead generation across the scope of industries here in the United States. But I started Get Optimized a few years ago because I wanted to get into craft beer. I'm a home brewer, been doing that for many years, and did some research after exiting another agency and said, look, I want to jump into something that I really love in an industry I like. And craft beer was on the map, and it worked out. And here we are a few years later, rocking and rolling and drinking beer for a living and trying to help people make money.
Dude, it's not the worst job in the world, is it? Like I describe it as my ikigai. Like I'm good at it. I enjoy it. It helps people, and I make some money. It's a wonderful place to be. But Chris, today we're talking about owned media, right, dude? For those who haven't potentially heard the term or used in this particular way, what does owned media mean?
Yeah, it's a great question, a great place for us to start. So I kind of look at channels and like media channels, audiences in two categories. Let's look at it like that. One category is rented audiences or channels, and the other category is owned. And when we think about rented audiences, what I mean by that is anything that you have to pay for to access on a regular basis. So this could be advertising audiences, like target audience groups you build on Meta ads or Google ads. I'd even classify like your social media following and those audiences as rented, because even though you might not be paying every time you access those, you still don't own those audiences, right? Like you can't export your following out and say, I'm going to reach out to this person one-to-one or load that following into a different platform. You could also lose that following for whatever reason. Like, maybe people decide that, Facebook is evil and toxic and everybody leaves the platform, right? You can't take that following and move it somewhere else. So you're very much so renting that attention in that space. The counter is owned, where you actually own the list of contacts that are in that audience. You could export them out, move them into different platforms. The examples of this are like email marketing, SMS marketing, even, app. Like if you have your own app, you actually, if it's set up correctly, you actually own your subscribers, right? And you can move them from app to app if you upgrade and that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the difference between those two type of channels. And I'll add that I think both channels are important to the marketing scheme, but the value and ROI and the use cases for each of those is different in how you use them. But that's the general framework there.
Okay, sweet. And like most people listening will be familiar with the, as you say, the rented side of things, the social media. Everyone's told they've got to jump on it, they've got to do it. But is there a risk of overly relying on rented media?
Yeah, I think so. I'll preface this by saying I'm not saying don't use those, right? There's absolutely value in social media and there's absolutely value in advertising and those kind of things. But if you, for example, the social media piece, if you overemphasize or you dedicate all of your marketing into just that particular bucket, not only are you risking potential pitfalls down the road. Like I'll give you a perfect example is, and maybe many people in the audience have experienced this where, let's say you get hacked on Instagram and you lose your logins and you had 15,000 followers on your account. Well, now it's gone, right? And you put all your eggs in that basket. You got to rebuild from ground zero because you didn't have other alternative channels there. So there's a little bit of risk of losing that. There could be trends, the algorithm could change, user preference could change on social media platform. Those are all risks that you potentially lose out on your chief marketing bucket because you didn't diversify. The other risk is that you're missing, it's more of an opportunity risk. You're missing out on opportunity for stronger return on spend, return on effort from owned channels that, I would argue is significant. And if you aren't taking advantage of those things, you're just missing low-hanging fruit and cheaper revenue to earn for your business. So there's an opportunity cost or opportunity risk and a kind of real risk in losing that access to that audience, right?
Mm. And just as you were talking that, I was thinking back, you obviously say there's probably the more realistic thing is you get hacked, you get locked out your account, you can't get it back. I've spoken to brewers who've struggled with that in the past, but then not that long ago, like TikTok got taken offline for you guys in the States, right? Yeah. We still had it here in the UK. Woo, lucky us. We still got to watch cats play piano. But it shows how fickle these beasts are, right? Like one day it's here and then all of a sudden you put all that graft in and whoof, it's just flitted away into the ether. So yeah, owning a mailing list and things like that, I can certainly see the value of it. But is it not harder to grow something like an email newsletter list, a mailing list, versus just getting those likes and follows on social media?
Well, yes and no, right? Like rewind the clock a few years ago, Instagram in particular was built to help you drive followers, and follower growth was cool. And the algorithm was saying, yeah, we want to try to drive followers on these platforms. And so it was a little easier to gain those followers. Now, like, I think the CEO, the head of Instagram is like, yeah, we're not really emphasizing followers. It's more about views and impressions and these kind of things. So I would argue that today follower growth on these kind of platforms is actually a little bit trickier than before and not as easy. Owned, to grow those channels, there are challenges, right? You do have to have different systems in place to try to get that person onto your email list or onto your SMS list. Is it harder? Yeah, sometimes. Are the numbers lower? Yeah, sometimes. Are you going to have 15,000 followers and also 15,000 people on your email list? Probably not. But the value in having like a 5,000 person email list, I would argue, is more significant, way more significant than even like a 15 or 20,000 person following on your social account sometimes. So there's challenges to grow that owned list, but over time, the payoff pays off with those things. So if you have the right systems in place though, and you have good value that you're sharing to gain those subscribers, then it becomes a lot easier.
Like you say, the 5,000 email newsletter subscribers versus the 15,000 Instagram followers. Is it a case of those 5,000 are more primed and ready to kind of, I don't know, buy from you and engage with you and have a higher chance of seeing that email, I suppose, land in the inbox versus just being spammed by such a high volume of content that you get on social media?
Yeah, so let's look at it this way. So if you post on social media, everybody who has a social media account knows that that post does not go out to all of your following. A small portion of that actually gets served to your followers. Whereas with email, for example, every single one of those contacts get a message in their inbox. So it's very much so a direct point to point line of communication that you have with somebody. So you have like a almost a 100% deliverability with email and SMS, especially. Sometimes emails get filtered into spam and they don't quite make it, or they get bounced or something like that. So it's not quite 100% deliverability there, but it's very very high compared to what you're delivering with a social media post, right? Or even ads. You may build an ad audience that has 100,000 people in it, and your budget, you could spend a pretty good amount and still not reach that total 100,000 people or whatever that target audience is. Where on the contrary, with email, you're getting that direct line of communication. Also, the people that opt into email, they're literally raising their hand and saying, hey, send me your marketing material. I want to know what's going on at the brewery. I want to know what beers are releasing. I want to know what deals and offers you have. They're quite literally saying, send me the stuff, when they opt in, and that is a huge value point there. Whereas with social and that kind of thing, maybe they're following you and say, I'm cool to check out your posts every once in a while. You may also get following that isn't really your target consumer, right? Let's say you're a brewery, you're in a certain area, your target geo maybe is a 10 or a 20-mile radius, or I don't know if you guys use kilometers or miles over there in the UK,
We're
but
miles kind of people here in the UK for the most
all
part.
right, cool. So we're speaking the same language here. So you got a 10, 20-mile radius. This is, I've worked with clients here in the US that have this where it's like, yeah, we got like, tens of thousands of followers. When you look at that report and where your followers are at, they're kind of spread all over the country. Not necessarily someone's going to walk in your tap room this Friday for music night, or on Saturday for bingo or whatever. So on the contrary, your owned list, these are mostly people that are your target consumer. They live in your area, they frequent your brewery or tap room or whatever very commonly. So it's like the value there is just different with those two audiences, right?
And I suppose, and we'll probably talk about this in a little bit more detail, but with email, I almost see it as like two phases, because even if they don't click on the email to see the content, you're still top of mind because that's landed in the inbox. That's almost the equivalent of them just seeing you in the feed, isn't it? But then there's that second piece of like, okay, now you've got me, I want to learn more. So you remain top of mind in a much easier way, don't you?
Yeah, I'm really happy you brought that up, because I think a lot of folks overlook that. They're like, well, what's my open rate? If I don't have a high open rate, is the message still being received? And just think about your email inbox. You're scrolling through it, you see the subject lines. Like, subject lines are viewed, and you can't really measure a viewed subject line with like open rates and that kind of stuff. You get the stats back inside of your reporting systems. But you're absolutely right. You're top of mind. You're in their inbox, and even if they don't open that email or they don't click on it, once they open it, you're still top of mind. You're still showing a relevant message inside of their personal inbox that they're checking probably every day or every other day, right?
Mhm. All right. So how can I get my hands on the email addresses without being like that kind of like icky or spammy kind of brewery that's going, give me your email, sign up here? Like, what are the best ways, the most effective ways to get people on your mailing list?
Yeah. So, good question. Yeah, I think first and foremost, you want to make sure that you're providing some kind of value in exchange for that contact info. This is very much like a transaction between somebody. If they're going to give you that contact information, what are you giving them back in return? And if you can identify what that value is, then that's going to help you a lot with however you're getting those folks to opt in. And that value can come in lots of different ways. It could be that, hey, you're going to receive the first notifications about when beers are being released. Okay, there's a little bit of value there. Maybe it's a special discount for new opt-ins. Hey, here's a 5% off your next order, or a free taster or something like that as an opt-in tool. We also run campaigns for like coupon downloads. When we run ads, we'll run advertising that pushes to a page that says, hey, we're offering this buy one, get one pint on your next order. All you got to do is sign up for our email. and then you run it like that. So you want to try to identify, hey, here's some value that I want to give you in exchange for you signing up for this information. And then the vehicles for getting that information, there's lots of ways you can do that too. One really simple way to do this is like, hey, just put up a poster or a little pop-up, what they call table topper at the bar, at your tables, with a QR code that pushes to your website with a form where they can sign up. You'd be surprised that if you just simply ask people to sign up, they will do it. Your success rate will increase. And those posters with those QR codes, nowadays QR codes are very prevalent. It's kind of funny that QR codes have made such a comeback. It was like nobody thought that. Well, first everybody, all the marketers were like, yeah, this is the most amazing thing ever. Consumers said, we don't like it. And then COVID happened and everybody was on the QR code train, and now the technology works. So whatever. My point is that QR codes are a great way to do that with some on-site signage. Your POS system is another excellent tool. Lots of point of sale systems have like the ability to either auto capture that email and funnel them into an email list, or a little quick checkout screen. Now everybody's got those mobile iPad or iPhone kind of things you bring to the side of the table. People can pop in their email address really quickly on those things. Your POS can be a great way to do that. Another really interesting one that I like to suggest as well is a Wi-Fi gateway system. So that's a fancy word, right? What do I mean by that? What a Wi-Fi gateway system is you plug this little piece of technology into your already free Wi-Fi, because you're probably offering that at your brewery. And what that does is when somebody accesses the Wi-Fi, it hits them with a screen that says, hey, before you sign on, join our loyalty program, pop in your name and email. And these things work excellently. Like, they're super good. And I talk to a lot of breweries about this, and their hesitancy is, well, I don't want to be spammy. I don't want to be like, oh, you have to sign up to access my Wi-Fi. And like the data that I've seen, like, you should just get over that. Like, people will do it. You will gain so many more contacts. And to put this in example for you with numbers, we are kind of partners with a system called Beambox, like Light Beam or Laser Beam Beambox. And so we get some data on some of our clients that are using this system. And we had somebody sign up a little over a year ago to install Beambox with their Wi-Fi. And they're already over like 9,000 subscribers in, like, I don't know, maybe 18 months or something like that. Disgusting numbers. Like, if you had 9,000 email signups in your system, that is a massive amount of value that you're just sitting on. And it's the Wi-Fi gateway system that does it automatically. So, and that's kind of it, is figure out a way to get the sign up in front of people and then get it in front of them, right?
I love that Wi-Fi access one. It makes so much sense, because if you think about it on the flip side, like, how many times have you been into the tap room and gone, can I have the Wi-Fi password, please? And you're just like, oh yeah, it's like lowercase, uppercase, underscore, it's just, it's that you're saving your bar team time, if anything, and getting an email address off the back of it. Oh, dude,
Yeah.
there you go, everyone. Like,
It's fantastic. And you get the data back on this stuff. These systems are cool, man. Like, anytime somebody shows up again to your brewery, they're going to like auto log in, and like that counts as like foot traffic visit. And the foot traffic visit piece is often sometimes difficult to measure as a physical location tap room. But if they're accessing the Wi-Fi, now you've got them on the Wi-Fi. You can see how many times they visit. You can set up automated email campaigns to say, hey, you've been here 5 times in the last 4 or 5 months. Here's a special reward for being an awesome customer. Or, hey, you haven't been in 6 months. Let's try to figure out a way to get you back in. Let's deliver you an offer or a special, or just a message saying, hey, come on in. And it's all fueled by the data from that Wi-Fi gateway system. So I love that stuff. And I definitely recommend checking it out if you're interested.
Love it. All right, so that's the first piece of the puzzle, right? Getting the email address. But then what's the sweet spot? Like, how do you then serve and make the most of that without someone going, no, unsubscribe? I got the Wi-Fi. I don't need anything else from these guys.
Yeah, and that's where that value piece comes into play, right? Like, if you're offering good value as part of whatever you're pushing out with your messages, people will want to stay subscribed. If you're just pushing spam kind of stuff through there and you're not very consistent with that messaging, people will just say, I'm going to put it in my junk email that I never use. So you want to try to get into their actual email that they care about. And the way that you do that is deliver valuable messaging. And what that probably looks like for a brewery tap room location is make sure you're keeping people up to date on your current events. Like I love the weekly, hey, here's what's going on at the tap room email. Talk about the music going on, talk about the new releases, talk about the food that you're putting out, and keep the message relevant and valuable for that audience. Great, great things to deliver. You can also get clever with like loyalty systems and special offers for people that are on email. Well, a really great example of this is SMS. So we haven't talked a whole lot about text, but text, if somebody gives you that phone number, that is like a even like closer piece of like contact information than even an email address is. So your value for those people has to be even more, not just a hey, every week I'm going to spam you with a hey, come in and buy my beer message. Try to give those people something special. Is it some kind of VIP, text club where they're going to get a notification to come in and sample beers before they're even available for public, for the public a day early or something like that? Do they get special deals on 4-packs? Do they get XYZ, right? Maybe your mug club is where you use SMS to push messages out. So you have to be delivering value in those email messages first and foremost. Then don't be careful not to overdo it with messaging. With email, it's a little easier to push more messages out. Our recommendation is like once a week is probably okay. If you do more than once a week, you should have a really good reason to do so. Sometimes we'll put out 2 emails in a week, but we're spreading those out. Like one goes out on Tuesday, one goes out on Friday. We're not trying to hit people every day. Nothing drives me like more crazy than when I get an email like every day from some like clothing brand that's like, hey, we got a different shirt. I'm like, I'm not buying shirts every day from you. Like unsubscribe, you're getting to be annoying. It's even more so with text message. I'd argue that, 1 or 2 texts a month is probably good. If you're doing more than that, you better have a really, really great reason for doing that, because you'll have people just unsub because they don't want the BS messaging in their inbox or on their phone, right?
So yeah, like this is a beautiful segue into the tech stuff that I wanted to talk about, because over here in the UK, I don't see a lot of breweries making much of or anything of like gathering phone numbers and the text messaging system. So talk me through how that works and how it's different to the email. Obviously, I'm not an idiot. I know the difference between an email and a text message. It's all right. You don't have to educate Grandad that much. But
yeah,
the approach, how a brewery would manage that and how it goes out, like talk me through that.
Yeah. So they are, well, traditionally it's been 2 different systems, right? You have your email marketing system like MailChimp or Constant Contact or one of these, and then you have a totally different system for pushing out text messages. Recently, and I say recently, probably over the last year or so, these email marketing systems have now figured out how to fold in SMS marketing into their software offering. Like MailChimp does it. POS systems do it, like Toast and Square, and some of these have the ability to send. So what I was going to say is that you have a different system that you're going to run through and manage your contacts in, and that's step number 1. But if your email system does have the capability to do this, you could keep it all under one house, which is kind of cool, because before, and even still now, you can find these things where you have to upload the contacts, and then you've got all your contacts in there, and you got to push out a message to them, and it's usually a different service provider for that. Anyways, whether you're doing it as a separate software or combined software, there are some things you're going to want to take note of. Governments have gotten smarter about data privacy now and like regulation with SMS. So you're going to have to jump through some hoops to be able to get approved to run text messages. And that's going to include things like having specific language in your privacy policies and your terms and conditions on your site. These text message systems have been sued a lot over the years. So they're like, all right, we're making sure that you have this stuff on there. So, and then most of them will give you the guidance and what you need to put on there and how you're opting people in. You have to get very express permission to be able to send text messages out. And that's like step number 1, is get that locked in. Then your payment method for running text messages is a little bit different than email. Most email marketing systems, it's like a service fee per month. You're paying 15, 30, 50 bucks a month, depending on how many contacts you have. With SMS, it's more of a pay per push. So you'll pay like a few cents per message Sometimes that price varies if you're adding imagery into there, and you can get different deals if you have more numbers in the system. And that kind of matters from how you're going to measure your ROI and your costs in pushing that out, right? And that's also why being careful with text is important. Is if you're just pushing out text all the time, if you have, a few thousand people in your SMS list, that's sometimes a couple $100 just to push out that one message. So it's like, all right, what are we pushing a message out? Are we potentially going to get a return of better than that $100, $200, or whatever it is to push out those messages? Now, if you have less context, it's a little bit less money to push that out, but your cost is a little bit different. Now, when it comes to SMS, the return on investment can be significant, though. Like your direct action, if you time that message right, you put it out on a day and people actually click the link, or they respond, or they go on and sign up for the event right then and there, your direct action off that text is way higher even than email. And email is already really, really good. So if you're strategic with it and you use it effectively, you could really crank event registrations. You could crank e-commerce sales with SMS. You just got to be careful with it. So you, again, don't overdo it. You don't overextend yourself financially on that. And you're obeying, regulatory stuff, because you don't want to get in trouble there, right?
All right. So now I got to ask, like, how do you be strategic with it? Like when do you know the right times? And you're both for email and text, right? Like what are those golden moments that you should be looking for before you send that information out?
Yeah, so it's a good question, and like the safest answer, I'll give you the safest answer, and then what I recommend and what we do. The safest answer is like monitor your own data, right? You're going to send out emails, see when people are opening, see when they're responding and clicking on your links and things like that, and use your own data to justify when you send this stuff out. That's the, hey, I didn't say the wrong thing answer. My recommendation and what we do is, like, I think about it like this. When are people going to care about beer? The normal workday week, probably not on Monday, Tuesday, rarely on Sunday. And when are they going to open up emails, especially from like a brewery or a beer brand? It's probably, Wednesday at the earliest. Thursday and Friday are great days. In fact, most of the emails we send out are on Thursdays, because we're often promoting something going on Friday and Saturday, which are big days for the tap rooms. Thursday gets a day ahead of that, and people are already starting to get into the vibe of the weekend, right? So email is great for that. I think SMS, same kind of situation. The caveat with SMS is like, don't hit somebody up at 8 o'clock in the morning with a, hey, come drink a beer. It's probably a little early, probably afternoon, and definitely before, it gets too late in the evening. I think actually with the regulations in the United States, you can't send out text messages after like 8 or 9 p.m. If you're a business, so you won't even be able to do it. But even then, that's kind of late. I would say, probably in the evening, 5, 6 o'clock is about as late as you'd want to go with it. There are probably reasons why you'd break those rules. Maybe you've got something going on Saturday and you want to push out that text messages because you got an event happening or those kind of things. But typically later in the week, your emails can go out then. Think like in between 12 o'clock and 5 p.m. is my recommendation.
And so then getting hold of the phone numbers, like, is that trickier than to me, that feels more invasive than asking for an email address. Like it feels a little bit more personal. So do you have to go about it a different way, or do you use the same mechanics as you would collect an email address?
Similar mechanics, right? Like you can have a QR code on a poster or on a table topper. You can collect the phone number from the POS exit point when they're checking out. You can have an opt-in on the website. But like you said, the barrier to gather that contact information is way higher, because it's a much more personal thing. It's like, I don't want somebody calling me or texting me and that kind of stuff. The difference is how you position the value offering for getting the text message and clearly stating, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do with it. And here's how often we're going to send you messaging. And by the way, we're never going to sell or distribute this information. It's something people really worry about. It's like, I don't want you to all of a sudden put me on a list and now I'm getting text messages from 50 other businesses or some crap like that. So being very transparent about, hey, we're not going to do that. We're not going to sell your information. Also, hey, we're going to send you 1 or 2 text messages a month about really like cool stuff that's only for our text message list. You're going to get special offers on this. You're going to get a discount on this. You're going to be the first to know about specialty releases and be the first to be able to buy those specialty releases. Being very clear about what this system is for and who it's for. is very, very important. And then, people will either opt in or not into the phone number system. I would say don't make it a required field and then start text messaging people. It's kind of like, oh, I didn't sign up for this, right? Like make it optional and say, hey, this is what we're going to do with it. And if you want in, you want in. If not, then you don't. And some people, you'd be surprised, people will opt in for that stuff, but be very clear about it.
Mm. Okay. And so like when we're talking about volume of those kind of messages, you're saying like maybe 2 a month from a text message side of things, 1 a week from a email side of things, and then with your social, you're more regular than that. So you can see this kind of like increase in content type, I suppose, the more that people are aware of it, or they're put in front of it more, aren't they? I suppose. So that's how you gauge the volume.
That's exactly it. The common knowledge with social is you can post every single day in your stories. You can do multiple per day, and great, do that. Email, if you email somebody every single day, it's not going to go over well. You're like, opt out. I'm done with this. But like, once a week is pretty good. And it kind of depends on how much messaging you're putting out. If you don't have something to say, something valuable to share, then, don't try to force the email in. My argument would be like, you probably got something valuable to say every week. So either whether you're doing that, hey, this week or you have a special event you're putting out, or a brand new release that's coming up on Saturday or something like that, you probably got something to say every week. You definitely at least have something to say every month to your email newsletter list, or I would say even at least every couple of weeks. So even if you got 1 email out or 2 emails out a month, your return is still going to be significant for that. You're staying relevant, you're staying top of mind, you're staying in, constant communication with these folks. And I guess that's kind of another tangent to go down is, consistency works with these kind of channels. If you email this month or this week, and then you don't email again for like 6 weeks, or you wait 3 months, and all of a sudden you pop up in their email list again, not only are you risking the chance of just being kind of forgotten about with that, they won't be used to seeing you on a consistent basis. You actually your deliverability scores go down, because people aren't constantly opening your email address and server history starts to look a little bit funky with these email servers. So you want to have consistent messaging, others every couple of weeks, a few times a month. It doesn't need to be the same day every week forever, but it's like, hey, we want to be in people's feeds. We want to be getting opens and click through on our emails consistently. That helps deliverability. It helps branding and messaging over time. So keep it consistent with this stuff. Same with SMS and all that too, but consistency plays with these channels.
And what about like striking the balance? So you talk about like upcoming events, and this is the beer that we got coming out, and we got this food truck here. Like, what about striking that balance between like giving the information and providing value, and then the ask, which is like buy a beer, buy the 6-pack? Like, how should breweries be balancing in that the trade-off between the two?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're going to ask for something, then, again, this is the transaction, right? It's why should I even attend this thing? A great example is like an event. Let's say you're hosting an anniversary party, or you're doing like a concert or something like that. Especially if there's some kind of paid aspect to this, you're going to charge $10 to show up. And a common example we do with events is like, we're going to charge you, $5 or $10 or something like that. But that includes your first pour. Here's the artist that's playing. Here's what's cool about that artist. Here's the beers we're going to have on tap. Here's the food truck we're going to have here. So I've like stacked in a lot of value here. We got good food, good music, good beer. And like by registering for the event and paying in advance, you're going to get your first pour included with that event registration. That's all value, 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 value. Ask, hey, sign up for the event here. Click here for this. That it boils down to value and communicating that. And I would argue that is applicable to every aspect of your marketing. If you're going to ask people to show up to your tap room, gone are the days where you can just say, hey, I've got beer, please come. It just doesn't, that's not the way it is anymore. So you got to figure out a way to communicate the value of that beer. Is it something special about that particular type of beer that they can't get somewhere else? Is there something special going on at the tap room? Whether it's an event, music, food truck, whatever, do you have something unique and interesting about your tap room that's fun to do? Like, are you a barcade and you've got arcade machines? Do you have, cool seating and kind of a comfortable environment? Do you have books that people can lend out and do that kind of stuff? Whatever that value is, you've got to communicate that value and then drop in the ask and give someone somewhere to go to commit that action, whether it's signing up for the event, buying something online, whatever, going to your reservation link because you want to book tables, that kind of stuff. But it's a 1-2 punch there: value, then ask. Right? Does that answer your question? I might
Yeah,
have
for
been a little
sure,
bit.
man. And what I was thinking then is like, okay, it takes a bit of time to put together an email newsletter. Like if I'm doing one a week and I've got to do the beers and the events and make sure all the value's in there, and then there's the ask, like, can they get away with one for everyone? Or if you've got like a mug club or a membership, and then you've got a general email newsletter subscriber list, do you have to go, no, actually, I got to make two because, one gets more detail, one gets less detail. Like, what's
Yeah.
the approach there?
Yeah, I mean, what you're talking about there is like segmentation, right? You might have different segments of your email that you want to deliver different messages to. Great example too, by the way, is your Mug Club people, and then you've got your standard newsletter. And your standard newsletter may go out to Mug Club. Fine, include them in that. Cool. But your Mug Club, they need special attention. They're part of the Mug Club. They probably paid you for some kind of annual or monthly subscription. You need to make them feel special. So having targeted specific messaging just for them. Absolutely. That's the way you make them feel valued and you deliver value. Saying, hey, this is just for the Mug Club. We want to say thank you. Hey, here's what's going on. We're doing a Mug Club event, whatever the case. So yes, your job does get a little harder. You got to have different messaging for different segments. I'll give you another example of segmentation that is potentially relevant is wholesale. So
Mhm.
let's say you're promoting wholesale activities in multiple states or multiple cities. You may want to collect email addresses using promotions in those areas. Maybe you've got a tasting, you put out your QR code at the sampling booth, or you're running a targeted coupon offer in those areas. People that opt in from city number one, they don't want to get messaging that is broad and or even related to a different city, especially if they're very far apart, different states. I'm not going to drive. I don't care. I'm going to opt out now because the message is no longer relevant to me. So you're going to want to segment your messaging to that audience and say, hey, Minnesota, hey, Las Vegas, we've got a brand new tasting, or we just released this particular product in this area. This is where you can find it. Now you've got a very specific, relevant message to that segment, which is only going to make your messaging stronger and your actions more efficient, right? Like someone who sees something from or for Las Vegas, because I'm in Las Vegas, I'll pick on that city. If I see something that's specific to Las Vegas, I'm more likely to participate or read or digest that information than if I'm just getting a national camp. How many times have you got a message? It's like, I don't even have that store in my area. I don't
Mm.
have that food option in my area. You see some national TVs and that kind of stuff. So the message is just lost if you're not specific and segmented. Chances are, though, like if you have a tap room, everybody in that audience is going to receive most of the same message. You have specific nuances where, like a mug club or a specific wholesale audience or something like that, might be segmented. Um, Another example of segmentation is when it comes to potentially automated emails for loyalty. You may want a segment of people that's based on like higher spenders. Maybe they've spent a certain amount of dollars or they visited your tap room a certain amount of times. You might want to send them a specific message that says, hey, you're one of our top spenders. Thank you for being such a loyal customer. Here's a whole set of value or offerings that we want to deliver to you because of that. Vice versa, or on the flip side of the coin, maybe they are a low spender. They haven't been in a long time. You want to serve those people a different set of messaging. And chances are that could be automated. You can set up
Mm.
an automation in your email, especially if you're integrated with your POS system, that just pushes out that email as soon as that person hits that threshold. And now you're hands off. You're like, yeah, this whole little machine is grinding loyalty for me without me having to do anything besides set it up. Right.
Yeah, I can see that being a big, once you've invested the time to get the structure right and strategy and the plan and the automations, yeah, it's a huge time saver because it's, like you say, it's nurturing that audience in the background and keeping them aware of what's going on. But I can see a big fib just being the amount of time something like this, or getting people to sign up and things like that, could be to what are already incredibly busy places with limited people on the ground to do that. So, what would you say are like maybe some more quick and dirty, quick wins that people could, like, listening here, could be like, okay, I'm going to give that a go. This is like a first phase start for me.
Yeah, so I think quick wins are you got to start getting signups now. You need to start gathering this stuff. So simple one we've talked about a couple times is just put the QR code up somewhere. and ask people to opt into that list. If your POS system has the functionality to be gathering emails, make sure that's turned on. Even if it costs you an extra $10 a month to have that functionality, do it, because man, now you've just got a machine that's grinding you up email contacts. You got to gather initially. So that's an easy low hanging fruit. Start doing that. The other thing is you should probably at least be getting out a monthly email. If you're worried about being strapped on time, at least get something out every month that talks about what's going on that month, what beers are potentially being released that month, the event calendar you've got, and get that out once per month at the very least, and you'll start to see a return on investment. That you start doing that, then you're going to get excited because you're going to see results flow through your system and be like, okay, this is paying off for me. Maybe I assign this task to my taproom manager or my social media manager, whoever that person is. They can probably handle some of this, and then you grow from there and you scale because you're getting a return on it, right?
Mm. And would you say, like, in terms of like investment of time into owned media versus what we called rented media at the start of the chat, is it a 50-50 split, do you recommend, or is there more weighting towards one than the other?
I mean, that's kind of the interesting part about owned, is that I think your time investment into owned is actually a lot less than all these other channels. You know, to do social media right, you've got to create content, you got to post every day, and that content creation and all that takes a lot of time to manage that stuff. Anybody who's had to do it knows it takes forever. It's a full-time job in some cases. So that takes a lot of time. Advertising takes a lot of time. There's accounts that have to be set up, targeting has to be set up, constant daily monitoring of those budgets and those targets. So your time investment on those is actually pretty significant. Owned, like, it's like, how long does it take to structure an email? Once you get used to it, you could probably knock this out in half an hour, maybe an hour tops if you're really struggling with managing the system and putting stuff together. But it's a lot less. And you put, an hour a week into something for your entire month, that's not that much time to do it. But the significant benefit of that is high. So it's even more, I didn't even think about it that way, is your time invested is also part of the ROI mix. And it's a lot less time to run owned, as compared to your rented audiences. So it kind of answers your question, I think. But yeah, I think dedicate a few hours a month and you're going to be pretty well set.
Nice. Yeah, yeah, the amount of time it frees up for you is the other return there, isn't it?
Mm.
The I notice what the time is. We've been waxing lyrical for ages. It's great, but I want to talk about the third sibling that we touched on very briefly, which is kind of the app side of things, the membership sign up, because bless them, a lot of the breweries that I go to, if you become a member, you get like a little printed little card that's kind of business card side, and it stamps it when you've had your pint or whatever, you get your growler, and that's about it. But technology has moved on. I've chatted to Ross from Tapwise, and that's
Oh yeah,
cool,
Ross is awesome, dude. Yeah.
but break it down, like what can you do with like apps for memberships and things these days?
Yeah, man. I'm glad you talked to Ross. And anybody listening that is really interested in this should go listen to that podcast episode, because I'm good friends with Ross too, and I understand a lot about what Tapwise does, and they have actually changed my tune on apps. I was very much hey, don't invest in building your own app because it's too expensive, and people aren't going to opt into it, and nobody wants to have the extra storage on their phones, yada yada yada, all the things you think about. The reality is now it's not that expensive to build your own app as it used to be. I have changed my tune on people opting into these apps because people will do it. They'll add it to their phone. And what you can do with the application is radical, man. Like, you can push notifications to all your people that are on that app. You can run your loyalty membership programs through there, and people are spending anywhere from $5 to $20 a month on like discount promos, mug club type things, all within the framework of the app. The app can also be used for like redeeming offers more easily and cleanly in the tap room through your POS system. There's just a lot of benefits to having your own app and your own kind of walled garden of messaging, and you own that audience, which is the next really, really biggest part within an app, as opposed to a third party app like Facebook or TikTok or whatever. So the systems and technology are better, and like all the functionality, you can run loyalty systems, push notifications. You can have like some of these apps have like games on them, like individual, like cool games inside of your own app. There's just really cool ways to kind of communicate your brand within your own owned app situation, which is really neat. And I'm changed my tune on it. I think apps are worth taking a look at.
Okay. So if you had to put your money on one, because say you're a brewery and you're like, okay, well, I can either ask my punter to give me their email address, their telephone number, or download my app, where would you be recommending they put their effort first if they had to pick one out of the three?
Yeah, I mean, if you have the capability or desire to build out a paid loyalty system, a membership of sorts, I'd say maybe start with the app, because the app is also going to allow you to gather email and phone number. Probably it's going to be used as that vehicle to do that. If you're not quite to the point where, hey, I'm ready for a paid membership system, then email is your absolute first step.
Mm-hmm.
Even with the paid system, I'd say you still want to have an email, because who's going to be most likely to sign up for your app and join your membership? Your email list. So email is probably the first step here with this stuff. Text message, cool. If you can make sure you put out some cool, relevant text message stuff. App, if you need the added functionality of a membership program, a loyalty program, coupon redemptions, and that kind of stuff, then hey, you want to probably build your own app. But email first.
Email first. Chris, this has been an epic conversation. Like, so many wicked nuggets of value, my man. I appreciate it. But
Yeah.
I want to wrap you. Yeah, I'll wrap you up. It's fine. You're a lovely looking chap. No, I want to wrap this conversation with what I seem to be asking a lot of my guests at the end of the show. It seems like I'm developing a pattern and I'm becoming predictable, which I don't want to be, but sod it, we'll crack on anyway. You're sat next to a brewery owner in a bar. He's just finishing his pint and his cab is like 2 minutes down the road. You have just 1 minute before he leaves now to catch his cab, because he wants to be outside a minute beforehand, just to flag him down. But
Yeah.
what in that minute, what is that knowledge that you impart with him to make the most out of his own media?
Yeah, dude, I would like, grab him by the shoulders and look straight into his eyes and be like, don't discredit the value of owned. Don't write it off. It's like, oh, nobody looks at their email, nobody checks their phone, nobody will download the app. Like, get that out of your head. This is such a powerful platform and your ROI is so good. You need to move forward with this strategy and this channel. Don't discredit it. Now go catch your cab and get home safe.
Go see your family. Chris,
Yeah.
Where can people follow you, get in touch with you, pick your brains more about owned media if they want to?
Yeah, you could find our agency site, getoptimized.com. We're at GetOptimized across social channels. You could hit me up. Direct emails, chris@getoptimized.com. I'm checking my email all the time, so feel free to reach out and or drop us a message on socials or wherever. And I'm happy to chat. I love doing fun conversations. I'm here to help, so don't be afraid to ask questions and don't feel like you're going to be put into a sales pitch. We're very much so a helpful agency and want to see you succeed. So reach out anytime.
Awesome, Chris. Once again, my man, thank you so much for your time. Everyone who's been listening, tuning in, giving us 48 minutes of their very, very well-earned time. I love you all. Have an amazing Friday. Have an incredible weekend. And we'll see you on the other side, people. Rock on.
See you guys.